Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this session, I'm going to give lecture on Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. Before starting with the session, subscribe the channel and share with others if you like this. This play was believed as was written between 1596 and 1598. The merchant Antonia defaults on a large loan and on behalf of Bassanio, his dear friend, provided by a Jewish moneylender Shylock. It was said to be a comedy play in the first folio and sharing certain aspects with Shakespeare's other romantic comedies also. This play is most remembered for its dramatic scenes and best known for the character Shylock and his famous demand for a pound of flesh in retribution. The play contains two famous speeches that of Shylock at Jewish eyes on the subject of humanity, and there are four show on the second one is the quality of mercy. So the debate exists on whether the play is anti-Semitic, with Shylock's insistence of his legal right to the pound of flesh being in opposition to Shylock's seemingly universal plea for the rights of all people suffering discrimination. Now, let me list out the characters in this play. Antonio is a prominent merchant of Venice in a melancholic mood, and Bassanio is Antonio's close friend, and of course, he was suited to Portia. Later got married. Portia and Bassanio got married later. And Graciano is a friend of Antonio and Bassanio. This guy is in love with Nerissa, and later he got married to Nerissa. Then Lorenzo is a friend of Antonio and Bassanio. He was in love with Jessica. Later, Lorenzo and Jessica got married. Then Portia, of course, Portia is Bassanio's wife. She got married Bassanio later. She was a rich lady. Balthasar and Stefano, these two are Portia's servant. Shylock, the Jewish moneylender. Of course, he is the father of Jessica. Jessica, the wife of Lorenza, and Tubal. Tubal is a Jew, a friend of Shylock. Then Lancelot Gobo, Launcelot, Lancelot Gobo, Gobbo. He is a servant to Shylock. Later, he served as a servant to Bassanio, was the son of old Gobo. He is a blind. Okay, old Gobo is blind. Then Leonardo, a servant of Bassanio. Duke of Venice. He was the one who has authority and the power, who presides over the case of Shylock's bond. Prince of Morocco, and actually initially Prince of Morocco was the suitor of Portia, but she got married to Bassanio. Then Prince of Aragon, he was also suitor of Portia. Then Salarino, Salanio, the friends of Antonio and Bassanio. Salarino, Salerino, Salarino, and Salanio, Salenio. Okay, these two are friends of Antonio and Bassanio. Then Celerio, Celerio, Celerio is a messenger from Venice. Of course, he's also a friend of Antonio and Bassanio. So this play, opens with Bassanio. He's a young guy from Venetian of noble rank. This guy wants to marry Portia, but to marry Portia, he needs money. He was in the need of money of 3,000 ducats, and to subside his expenditures as a suitor. Now Bassanio approaches his friend Antonio, a wealthy merchant of Venice. Antonio is wealthy, but at that time he was not able to give him the money. That time Antonio agrees that, but since he is cash poor, his ships and merchandise are busy at sea, and he said he'll find a money lender and get the money from the money lender. So Bassanio turns to Jewish money lender Shylock, and Antonio gives his name as loans guarantor. Antonio has already had his rivalry with Shylock through his outspoken words, because Antonio lends money without looking for any interest, which makes Shylock very angry. So Shylock is waiting for the chance to take revenge, or to make trouble for him. And Antonio also forced Shylock to reduce his rate of interest, but he cannot do that. He said he won't do this. But this time Antonia didn't have other chance, so he approached Shylock and asked money. Initially, he was reluctant to give him money, but later he agreed to give money. Finally, he agrees to lend the sum of Bassanio, give a condition. If Antonia were unable to repay the specified date, Shylock will take a pound of Antonia's flesh. This is what the agreement which was made between Shylock and Antonio. But Antonio needs money that time, so he accepted and agreed the bond, the contract, the agreement. So now Bassanio, leaves with money for Belmont, where to marry Portia. So meanwhile, in Belmont, what happened? Portia is awash with suitors. Suitors are waiting. A father, Portia's father, left a will. He wrote a will stipulating that each of the suitors must choose, correctly from the three caskets. The father of Portia has made three caskets which are made of gold, silver, and lead, respectively. See, the one who picks the right caskets. Wins the Portia's hand. The first suitor, the Prince Morocco, chooses the gold casket, and interrupting the its slogan, "Me shall gain what many men desire," as referring to Portia. The second suitor, the conceited Prince of Aragon, chooses the silver caskets, which proclaims, "Who choose me shall get as much as he deserves, as he believes he is full of merit." So both suitors live empty handed, having rejected the lead casket because of the baseness of its material and uninviting nature of its slogan. Who chose me must give the azure of all he had. The last suitor, Bassanio, whom Portia wishes to succeed, having met him before. As Bassanio ponders his choice, members of Portia's husbands sing a song that say the fancy is engaged red in eyes, gazed fit. Bassanio chooses the lead caskets and wins Portia's hand. Meanwhile, what happened? Antonio received a message as his ships were lost in sea, so the merchant cannot repay the bond. He was scaring because his ships were lost in the sea. Shyla has become more determined to exact revenge from the Christians, because his daughter Jessica eloped with the Christian Lorenzo and converted. She took a substantial amount of Shylock's wealth with her, as well as a turquoise ring with Shylock's had been given by his late wife Leigh. Shylock has Antonio brought before the court. Now, the Bassanio at Belmont receives a letter telling him that Antonio has been unable to repay the loan from the Shylock. Portia and Bassanio marry as the Graciano and Portia's handmaid Nerissa. Now Bassanio and Graciano leave for Venice with money from Portia to save Antonio's life by offering the money to Shylock. Unknown to Bassanio and Graciano, Portia sent her a servant, Balthasar, to seek the counsel of Portia's cousins Bellario, is a lawyer at Padua. Now, the climax of play is set in the court of the Duke of Venice. Shylock was guy, he was arrogant, refuses Bassanio's offer of 6,000 ducats, twice the amount of the loan, because he has gone beyond the date which he has mentioned. He demands his pound of flesh from Antonio. The Duke, wishing to save Antonio but unable to convince Shylock. Now he identifies himself as a Balthasar, a young male doctor of law, bearing a letter of recommendation to Duke from the learned lawyer Bellario. The doctor is Portia in disguise, and law clerk who accompany her is Nerissa. Nerissa also disguised as a man. As Balthasar, Portia, in a famous speech, repeatedly asks Shylock to show mercy, advising him that mercy is twice blessed. Give him, and she requested as a lawyer. However, Shylock adamantly refuses any compensation and insists on the pound of flesh. As the court grants Shylock his bond, and Antonia prepares for Shylock's knife. Portia appreciates Shylock's argument for no specific performance, and she says that the contract always Shylock's to remove only the flesh, not the blood. As per the contract, the Shylock has to take only the flesh, not the blood. And if Shylock were to shed any drop of Antonia's blood, his lands and goods would be forfeited under the Venetian laws. She tells him that he must cut precisely 1 pound of flesh, no more, no less. She advises him that if the scale do turn in estimation of the heir, and all your goods are confiscates. Now the Shylock consents to accept Bassanio's offer of money for the defaulted bond. First is offered to pay the bond thrice, which Portia rebuffs, telling him that take his bond, then merely the principal. But Portia prevents that. I cannot give. The money cannot be given because if you need the money, you could have taken already. Now you come to this court. So she cites a law under which Shylock, as a Jew and therefore an alien, having attempted to take the life of a citizen, has forfeited his property off up to. So finally, half of his property is taken to the government, and half of the property of Shylock has to given to Antonio, leaving his life at the mercy of the Duke. So the Duke was magnanimous, and he spares Shylock's life and says he may remit the forfeit. He has to give that Shylock's wealth. Portia says the Duke may waive the state share, but not Antonio's. Antonio says he is content that the state waive its claim to half Shylock's wealth if he can have his own half share in use until Shylock's death, when the principal would be given to Lorenzo and Jessica. Antonio also asked that for this favor, Shylock convert to Christianity, and he also accepted to get converted to Christianity, and his entire estate to Lorenzo and Jessica. The Duke then threatens to Shylock with death. He accepts with the words as "I am content." Bassanio does not recognize his disguised wife, but offers to give a present to the supposed lawyer. First she declines, but after he insists, Portia requests his ring and Antonia's gloves. Antonio parts with his gloves without second thought, but Bassanio gives the ring only after much persuasion from Antonio. As earlier in the play, he promised his wife never to lose, sell or give it. Now Nerissa, as a lawyer's clerk, succeeds in likewise retrieving her ring from Graciano, who does not see through her disguise. At Belmont, Portia and Nerissa taunt and pretend to accuse their husbands before revealing they were really the lawyer, his clerk in disguise. After all other characters make amends, Antonio learns from Portia that 3 of his ships are not standard, coming safely. So with this, the play gets over. Thanks for listening. Subscribe the channel.